TGIF, am I right, guys? Can't wait to go home and binge watch something because it's been dark outside since 4 p.m. But until 7 p.m., I'm committed to bringing you guys the greatest DFS and sports betting advice on the planet. JK, I'm not actually giving the advice, thank God. These guys are. DraftKings contributors Reed Fowler and Jeff Ulrich and Derek Brown of the Quant Edge. All right, guys, this is NFL Chalk Report. We go position by position, and you tell me who's going to be chalk at each one. So we start at quarterback. Who's going to be chalky here, Reed?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Dak Prescott. If you just look at what he's been able to do in the past couple of games, he's thrown for multiple touchdowns. And while you still have Ezekiel Elliott there, and a lot of people are going to go towards him in this game, attack that porous Detroit Lions defense, like they've also had a lot of injuries on that backside of that defense or of the secondary. And when you look at Prescott and what he's been able to do and what the Lions have failed to do against guys like Derek Carr, Mitch Trubisky, who threw for 3 touchdowns last week, Kirk Cousins, who's been playing a little bit better than the beginning part of the season, they've given up 13 touchdowns in those games of the last 4. So I think when you look at him and you see Lamar Jackson at that high price tag, guys are going to go down to him.
Jeff, who's going to be the chalk at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I could see Dak Prescott getting up a little bit in ownership. I don't think he'll be super chalky because there's other players around him at price that'll still garner ownership too. I think the guy who I'm looking at as real chalk at quarterback is going to be Kyle Allen, 5,300. I don't really need to talk about the matchup. I think that's what's mostly enticing here to people. Carolina has a home matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. I think obviously just when you mentioned Atlanta, you're going to take a look at the quarterback on the other side. But Allen's played well. I mean, he played well last week in poor weather against Green Bay. And people trust him with Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore on the other end of for like a long touchdown or something. So 5,300, there's really no other reliable quarterbacks in that range. Just want to take a shot with like Brandon Allen or something like that, which most people won't want to do. So I'm looking at Kyle Allen, probably going to be the chalkiest QB on the slate.
What do you think, Derek?
I think it's going to be Drew Brees. I think he's going to carry a lot of ownership, and for good reason. I mean, he's going up against a Tampa Bay defense that's a pass funnel. We know they're absolutely atrocious. They're banged up across the board as well. Brees has got a sky-high ceiling. I mean, this year, you worry about the volume last year because they go so run-heavy. This year, he's been getting the volume. He's had 43 or more pass attempts in every single game, which is a mark he only hit once last year. So I think Brees will carry a lot of ownership this week, but for very good reason.
All right, how about some chalky running backs, Jeff?
I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs here, obviously, with the Raiders. But, I mean, again, it's a matchup kind of thing. Whenever you're looking at a running back going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, you can pretty much guarantee that running back's going to garner a little bit of ownership. So a lot of people are going to be looking to try and fit like McCaffrey or Zeke into lineups. But, again, Josh Jacobs is sub 7K, and at the start of the year, we might not have thought that was a good price, but now we've got to work at his workload. We've gotten to work at the player who's obviously quite good, and we know that Oakland wants to run the ball. So, I mean, at 6,900, I think people are just going to look at this as still a discount on a workhorse running back and a fantastic matchup. I think he's going to be one of the top 3 running backs owned for sure.
What do you think, Derek?
I think it's going to be Miles Sanders. I mean, we have the news coming out that Jordan Howard is not available for contact. If he gets ruled out, I think that the ownership is going to bump up, despite it being versus the Patriots. This Patriots run defense has been gashed the last few weeks, and they've given up back-to-back 100-yard games versus Nick Chubb and Mark Ingram. We saw Le'Veon Bell run with half of an offensive line basically for 4.7 yards per carry. I think Miles Sanders is going to garner a lot of ownership as we go through the weekend.
Reed, what do you think?
It's going to be Brian Hill for me. We got the news, and we can kind of hear it now, right, with the news with Miles Sanders, is that when that RB1, like Devonta Freeman, or these guys are injured, then that backup gets a lot of ownership. And at his price tag, because those prices came up before Freeman was injured, he's not going to be at a price tag that is going to allow you to fit other guys if you want to go Lamar, if you want to go Christian McCaffrey. And look at the Carolina Panthers. We talk about run funnel defenses. They've been terrible against opposing running backs, and opposing running backs have been gaining a ton of DK fantasy points, giving up the 4th most so far this season. And Carolina has given up a touchdown on 14 touches. That is, it's the league worst. And so when you look at that and you look at what he's been able to do, and essentially going to get all those carries there if Freeman sits out, I think that's a smash spot for him.
All right, Derek, who's going to be the chalk at wide receiver?
Right now, it's DJ Moore. I mean, we were talking about a second ago about Kyle Allen carrying a lot of ownership. All of his pass catchers are super cheap this week. DJ Moore is a guy who's been getting a ton of volume. We've seen him put up back-to-back 100-yard games. He's had 8 or more targets in each of the last 5 weeks. I think people are just going to lock button him in, especially in cash lineups.
What do you think, Reed?
Deebo Samuel, again, with guys banged up on that San Francisco side. We got Breida, who's probably not going to be playing. Kittle, we don't know that the extent of his injury. Emmanuel Sanders, we still have yet to think about what he's going to do. Even if he's playing, he might be scaled back a little bit. And just look, when Sanders and Kittle were both out in that game, he saw a huge target share in that game. He was the guy that Garoppolo was looking at. And just when you look at that team, right, they have a high implied team total in that matchup against Arizona. So I think it's going to be Deebo.
What do you think, Jeff?
I mean, look, this one kind of goes off the Carolina pick, but I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd at 5,200. And you look at the 2 Carolina pass catchers, and I agree, they could easily be the top 2 owned players in big GPPs like the Millie Maker this week. But the thing is, most people aren't going to roster both of them, right? So they're going to roster DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel, probably with Kyle Allen as quarterback. So if you want another cheap wide receiver in that range or you want to differentiate, Tyler Boyd is going up against Oakland, which is just terrible at guarding against wide receivers. And people know this by now. He's super cheap. He might not have the greatest quarterback, but he's still getting targets there. And I think Tyler Boyd, because of the fact both these Carolina wide receivers are in the same price range, is going to garner quite a bit of ownership. So I'm looking at him as being potentially like a top 5, top 8 owned player.
Finally, tight end. Who's going to be chalky at tight end, Reed?
Jared Cook. I mean, this guy was a no-show with Teddy Bridgewater. You season long, you dropped him. You didn't even target him in DFS. And now with Drew Brees back, we saw that target share increase to 23% in that game. And so Drew Brees is clearly looking his way. We have these high-priced guys, and this slate is really bad for tight ends. And when you look at that matchup, and when you look at what the New Orleans Saints want to do and want to get back to their offensive prowess, Tampa Bay is giving up the second most DK fantasy points to tight ends. So if it's not the Arizona Cardinals, you're attacking that Tampa Bay team, pairing up with Drew Brees, like Derek was saying earlier. I think it's a nice spot, especially at his price tag.
Jeff, the chalk at tight end.
Going back to Carolina, going to talk about him a lot today, I guess. Greg Olsen, 3,900. I mean, it just flows back. You have Atlanta, you have a Carolina team who's been pretty good offensively at home. Greg Olsen's 3,900. He's getting the targets. There's really not much else to say. It's a weak tight end slate. I think people are just going to feel comfortable. I don't really like it because I feel like if Christian McCaffrey gets off and Atlanta plays like they have most of the year, then they're not going to throw that much. But Greg Olsen's definitely going to garner ownership.
Take us home, Derek.
I think it's going to be Darren Waller. We've been talking about how nasty the tight end position looks on this slate, and yeah, it's got awful. I think that with the value spots of running back opening up, people are going to look at Darren Waller, remember his big games, and look at the Bengals. And, I mean, we talk about recency. Mark Andrews absolutely smashed them last week. I'm more worried about Darren Waller, and he's not a guy I'm looking at, but I think he will garner ownership because of the value that's opening up at other positions.
All right, good stuff, guys. We'll have you back to close the show. As for what's coming up, we're revealing who's getting boosted odds in our parlay of the week. Plus, it's Francesa Friday, of course. But before all that, let's toss it over to our pals over at the Pat Mayo Experience.
The Jets are at Washington. Washington is favored by 1.5 at home against New York.
Outrageous.
38.5 is the over-under in this game. Chris Herndon has been placed on IR. He is out for the season after mere days after Tim told us that he was his good red shirt keeper in our keeper league that he was playing and saving. So that's a fun one. Chris Herndon, very cursed. This is the most publicly backed game of the week in terms of money. 97% of the money is on the New York Jets. This line has not moved.
How could we lose?
Dwayne.
How could we lose?
Oh, I like to hear
Oh, my
this.
God. This
Dwayne
might be
Haskins.
super lock now.
Yeah, Dwayne Haskins notches his first career win.
Sunday. Sam outplayed Daniel Jones. He played fantastically. He didn't make any mistakes. He threw some great balls. The team defensively didn't play great, but they made some big stops when they had to. The offense clicked again after 3 or 4 weeks of and Jeff being very nervous about what we saw.
I'm still nervous. Don't
least
take away my nerves.
They beat a really team, and now they're great again. They're back.
The worst corner.
They're back, baby.
The worst corner in the league, getting roasted by everybody, plays on the Giants.
I was able to take a breath. Okay, this is not an unmitigated disaster the way it looked like the last month.
What happened is you made 3 bogeys and you just parred a hole, and now you want us to glad hand you for par.
You have to stop the bleeding. You got to make that par. You got to make sure if you got the yips and then you make a 20-footer, then you've made it. Okay, maybe you can get over this. It doesn't mean that the round is saved, but it just means, okay, the bleeding's been staunched. The wound's been cauterized, and that's what that game was. Now we take another turnaround. Sam's 2-0 against the NFC East. We turn around to play a absolutely abysmal NFC East team, a stadium that's going to have nobody in it because no one's going to Maryland to watch this game. And the Redskins are favored by 1.5 with Dwayne Haskins, who cannot move the ball down the field. Peterson, we'll see. I'll wait for SEO purposes to talk about Peterson on Sunday. But not the hell with it. He's not going to do anything. He's going to get bottled up. He's not going anywhere. He's going to have a bad game. I don't think the Redskins score a point in this game. I think it's Jets 21, Redskins 0. I love it. We're teasing the Jets up. I don't see it. We will beat a really bad team. Now, in a couple, we think we play Oakland next week. Sure, we're going to get beaten by the Raiders. We play the Steelers later on. We're going to get beaten by the Steelers. We play the Bills again. We'll be beaten by the Bills. Like, this is not a team that's going there. I was glad to see Sam say, if we went out, we make the playoffs. Great. I was glad to see that type of gusto, even though it's not going to happen.
Imagine if Baker Mayfield said that. How upset and triggered you'd be.
Baker would have guaranteed it and then gone to shotgun a beer in the eye line of some cameras. So that's a little bit.
I like how Tim is out here living his truth with this Jets team. This is just fantastic.
I have so many things to say.
You know what Washington actually has? A defense.
Yeah.
Everyone, though, is talking about Colin Kaepernick right now, and the former Niners QB is 32, hasn't played since 2016. He has been a talking point ever since then, and he will work out in front of most, if not every club Saturday in Atlanta. Some players have openly believed that this is just a PR stunt by the league, that it's not a legit workout. Do you believe that Kaepernick is going to turn this opportunity into a job?
That I'm not sure. I would say that I think he would have had the same chance of being in the league had he not done this as if he did it. I don't think this gets him a job. I think if there's a job, he would have had it under regular protocol. This is a farce. This is a complete PR farce. This means that the league is still running scared. And I would think what this is this is something that was agreed upon when he dropped his grievance. I think this had to be agreed upon. This has nothing to do with NFL protocol. The NFL protocol for players who aren't in the league is you have your representative contact the team. That team has you in on a Tuesday and tries you out and then decides whether to sign you or not. There is no protocol anywhere. There is nothing anywhere where the league sets up an orchestrated 32-team Saturday, which means coaches can't be there, general managers can't be there. Saturday workout with a pre-interview, okay? A pre-interview. This is the biggest joke in history. This thing is a complete farce.
It's a pro day.
This is a complete farce, absolutely set up where everything gets in the Sunday papers. The Sunday shows get to announce it. This gets him maximum publicity. Hey, we did everything we could for Kaepernick. This shows that they're still running scared of the Kaepernick collusion, Kaepernick blacklist stuff. And I think this was clearly, they deny it, but I think this was clearly part of the agreement when he dropped his grievance.
Do you like Kaepernick as a fit anywhere?
No.
Or do you just believe he can't play?
Here's how I think about Kaepernick. I don't care if Kaepernick's in the league. He's allowed to be in the league. More power to him if he's in the league. If a team wants to play him, God bless him. If a team wants to bring him in as a backup, God bless him. I think Kaepernick is a marginal starter in the NFL. I think he's got to be in the right hands to be successful. I think he does have some ability, or he did have some ability. I think, though, that he's probably more trouble than he's worth because he's going to stir up a lot of controversy in any city he goes to. He also might be divisive on your team. So from that standpoint, he's just a very controversial figure. Is he worth it as far as whether he can help your team? I think that's very borderline, and it's something every team has a right to make a decision on. And there's no way you can tell me that I think the league would be happier if he was sitting on somebody's bench than to go through all the stuff they're going through right now.
Local to you, Giants stink. Just 2-8. Saquon Barkley banged up. I know you tweeted about that, as a matter of fact, and an ankle, shoulder, probably his pride at this point.
Well, what I said was that he better be hurt.
Yeah, because he was playing so poorly.
Because he's not. He stinks. I mean, that's basically it. And then he came out and said he was hurt on Tuesday. So he had to be hurt. He was hitting a hole with no authority. He has no second step. He has no ability to cut anymore. He's not breaking tackles. He's also been terrible on blitz pickup. So he looks like an ordinary player.
Well, and he said that he won't shut it down, and obviously that's admirable on his part, I guess, but should the team do it anyway? Is it in their best interest?
If he's hurting, they're crazy to play him. Absolutely crazy. Plus, it gives them a built-in excuse. It gives them another excuse to say, hey, we didn't have Barkley. We weren't healthy. We played some young players. We made progress. See, they're already into the mode of the coach speak. Shermer is. Gettleman doesn't say much, but they're already in the mode of, hey, I know it's not showing up in wins and losses, but I see progress. We're playing young players. I see progress. That is the biggest bunch of baloney. It's what every coach says who's 2-8 and on a losing streak. I see progress. Well, what are you going to say? 2-8, I'm never going to win another game? You can't say that. So, of course, you say you see progress. There's no progress here. The Giants are no closer to being good now than they were at the start of the season.
Just how bad are things for the G-men after that loss to the Jets, especially when it's really, punctuated by that?
They're in a bad way from a standpoint of, I think they are bad in terms of scouting players. I think they're bad in terms of execution, and I think they're badly coached. So that covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
The only thing that this year has provided them is it has provided them a quarterback who has some ability. I don't think there's any question that Daniel Jones has shown that he has the ability to play the position, but he's got to cut down on what is a very, very serious penchant for fumbling the football.
Well, wish for your sake that I could say, hey, at least you got the Jets. They're better. They're not. They're terrible. And CEO Christopher Johnson said that Adam Gase will return next season, even if that does prove true. Was that the smart thing to say now with the team at 2-7 and to kind of trap himself in this proclamation?
Jets and smart never go in the same sentence.
So no, then.
It makes no difference. He just doesn't want to be told what to do. He doesn't want to be dictated to. What happened is, I think Gase has the support of the general manager right now. The general manager is trying to secure his foothold. They're not on the same contract. They're not on the same page. They're not a married pair. They're exclusive. So I think the fact that right now the general manager is backing the coach, they let the owner back the coach, and that's where we are right now. But that team has huge holes on the offensive line, which has to be dealt with immediately in the offseason. They have big holes at cornerback, offensive line, edge, pass rusher. Other than quarterback, the three toughest positions in the league to fill is where they are weakest. They have a lot of work in front of them.
Well, I'm building on what you're talking about. Is Gase maybe a scapegoat for poor roster, lack of depth, injuries, all the issues they've had to deal with this year?
Probably yes, but he's also coached the team, I think, in a negligent, I don't even give a damn manner. I really think so. I think the way he's coached the team has been just awful. I think I really wonder at times I really wonder if he cares. That's how bad they play.
Sam Darnold might have had more fun when he had mono, but humorously came out and said that he believes the playoffs are still on the table if the Jets win out. That
was one of the craziest. I've heard a lot of crazy stuff, but when your team is got 2 wins and they're talking about the playoffs, I mean, be quiet. I mean, Sam, I like Sam. I like him. He's a nice kid. But I couldn't even understand that one. I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. Just zero. I mean, if they win 5 games, that would be a lot.
Well, in fact is, let's just live in this mythical world where they did win out. I'm not even sure 9-7 would get them in the playoffs anyway. So,
I don't know if it would either, but the point is, don't worry, they're not winning out.
How many games do you expect them to win? I know you just said 5 would
well, they have a couple
be good. Yeah, they've got 2.
Yeah. They got a couple winnable games on the schedule. I could see them winning 3 more games.
Okay, that makes sense. First game of Week 11.
And I think the Giants will win 2 more games. So I think between them, one team will win 5 games, the other team will win 4 games.
Tara Linazak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The NFL came down hard and fast on Myles Garrett following his altercation with Mason Rudolph on Thursday Night Football. The Browns' defensive end has been suspended indefinitely without pay for a minimum of the remainder of the regular season and playoffs. The league made the announcement on Monday, which included suspensions for Pittsburgh's Marquise Pouncey and Cleveland's Larry Ogunjobi. Both organizations were given hefty fines as well. You've all seen it. With 14 seconds left in the game, Garrett got into it with Mason Rudolph, ripping off his helmet and hitting the Steelers QB over the head with it. Some are calling it the closest thing to an on-field crime we've ever seen. Adam Schefter simply tweeted assault. Rudolph's agent isn't ruling out any legal options, telling ESPN on Friday, "I am gathering all information and no options have been removed from the table." Going overlooked in all of this mess is the actual game that was played. The Browns got a much-needed 21-7 victory against a division rival and kept themselves alive in the playoff hunt. They will try to make it 3 wins in a row against the Dolphins next week before visiting, yep, you guessed it, Pittsburgh in Week 13.
On the next game of the slate is the Texans at the Ravens, which has potential to be one of the best games on the slate from a fantasy perspective and definitely from a real-life perspective. 2 of the most dynamic special quarterbacks in the league. Is Lamar Jackson entering the generational talent conversation, boys?
Who are you removing to enter Lamar Jackson into the? You can't have like 10 generational. You got to remove somebody.
Patrick Mahomes is the only guy who I'm saying is a generational quarterback at this point. It has not been good with the injuries for him, but still buying that.
What about
who's the generational running back?
I said Saquon Barkley, who's been absolutely dust since I said that.
Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's not the generational talent.
You know how much
I love
local
Christian product, McCaffrey. Peter. You're going against your own city now.
Christian McCaffrey is a straight baller, and I've
not a generational talent. But
I've had a lot of conversations about Christian McCaffrey, some of which are inappropriate with you two. So, all right, let's keep it. Let's stay on track here because this is a really good game. Ravens are favored by 4 points. Adam, what are the news and notes?
Yeah, Will Fuller sounds like he has a chance to get back for Houston, which would send DeAndre Carter back to the bench and move Kenny Stills into the slot. I don't know, though. Will Fuller may give Will Fuller another week. I suspect Ravens come in pretty healthy. Cornerback position we know is their extreme strength right now. I think it's a tough spot going to Baltimore for Deshaun Watson and these guys. And yeah, I was happy to see that DraftKings got aggressive with Lamar Jackson's price because at 7,700 you start to have questions. I still think Lamar Jackson, you can make cases the best quarterback on the slate, even once you consider price. But at least now you have to think about it to some degree, and at least there's now like a wide range, right? So like if you're willing to like punt it off with Jeff Driscoll, you can save 3,100, or you punt it off with not even punting off. If you play Kyle Allen, you save 2,400, et cetera, et cetera. So there's at least some thought there. Whereas before it was like Lamar Jackson was priced right next to like 8 different guys when he's so obviously just the most ridiculous fantasy player that we've seen in recent memory. I mean, he's on pace to break Patrick Mahomes' record for most fantasy points in a season by a quarterback set last year. So, I was glad to see that on the pricing.
So if you roster Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey, since they're both essentially like rostering 2 players, you get to roster 11 players on DraftKings. You get those extra roster spots. I mean, with Lamar, you're getting a quarterback and a running back in one, and with Christian McCaffrey, getting a running back and a wide receiver in one spot. So you could theoretically draft 11 players if you just roster those 2 guys in the same lineup.
Christian McCaffrey
that seems like an advantage.
Christian McCaffrey might throw a touchdown here soon too. Again,
great! Now he's a 3-positional player.
Yeah, generational.
Yeah,
you reminded me.
You wanted multi-positional eligibility in football. Here's how you get it: you roster Lamar Jackson. You can roster 4 running backs and 1 quarterback. You'll be the only person on DraftKings that can do that. I like the pricing, though. I mean, look, at his other prices, he was kind of bust-proof, right? At 6,800 and 6,200, he was bust-proof. Like, what's a bad day at that price? And considering that he's not running it as little as they said he was going to, like, remember before the season, they were like, we can't let him run the ball 17 times a game on average again. We have to get him to run it maybe 10 to 12 times a game. Certain situations, he'll run it more than 10 or 12. But we want to hold him down to 10 or 12 carries. That's still 200 carries in a season, which would smash the previous record. And then the last week against Cincinnati, when they got up 106-5, he ran it only 7 times. And one of them was a long 47-yard touchdown with a circle button spin move in there. But the previous few games, 16 carries, 14 carries, 19 carries, 14 carries. They know how to put defenses on their heels.
What's going on, people? I am Brendan Glasheen alongside DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow. We are here to get you ready for college football Saturday, presented by Wrangler. Jules, we've got 9 games to choose from.
9 of them.
9 for this Wrangler contest. It's going to start for us in Ann Arbor. Number 14, Michigan, taking on its arch rival in the Big Ten, Michigan State. Big Blues the favorite, coming off that big win over Maryland. How do the Wolverines fare against the Spartans, a team that's lost 4 in a row?
So I like the spot for Michigan a lot at home to win this game, but I think that the perception is that Michigan can blow out Michigan State here, and that just isn't going to happen in a rivalry game like this. No matter what the teams are ranked, no matter what the win-loss columns say, these two teams generally play very close games. So while I do think Michigan can prevail here, they're definitely the more talented team. A defensive-minded Michigan State team can always come into this matchup and make it an exciting game.
In the SEC, number 5 Georgia has rallied since losing to South Carolina in overtime a few weeks ago. Bulldogs now host number 13 Auburn, who just topped Ole Miss. Where are you leaning here?
Yeah, really disappointing loss at this point for Georgia. Had they prevailed there, they would probably be sitting undefeated in the college football playoff. But now, this is a chance for them to get a huge ranked win the week after Alabama and Penn State lose. Huge opportunity for them to potentially jump into the top 4 at some point.
All right, and finally in the ACC, Clemson surely looked highly motivated against NC State over the weekend. Last week, the third-ranked Tigers left out of the committee's top 4 for the college football playoff. They get Wake Forest at home now. Clemson by a million, maybe?
Yeah, not much else to say here on that narrative. They came out, slighted out of that first college football poll and just absolutely dominated NC State. I expect more of the same against Wake. So sorry to Wake Forest, but Clemson's just going to keep throttling teams and go undefeated this season.
All right, I am Brendan Glasheen. He is DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow. That is a look at some of Saturday's top college football matchups presented by Wrangler.
Welcome back to The Sweat. It's time to take a look at tonight's 8-game NBA slate. I've got Alex Brutha of RotoWire here to play NBA building blocks. So Alex, who are you building your lineups around at each position? Start us off with your building block at center.
At center, starting to build my lineup, I did like Thomas Bryant at 6,100. He's in what should be the fastest paced game of the night, at least one with a 240 over-under here. I mean, it's 6,100. This is the cheapest Bryant has been all season long, and he's a guy who's consistently getting 30 to 35 fantasy points and can go off for 40 or more, and definitely a guy who can get you a double-double bonus. He shoots threes. So in a fast-paced matchup, he was a guy that I slotted in as a kind of a mid-priced option, and from there you can go up or down based on who else you put in your lineup.
All right, how about at forward here?
At forward, I like Domantas Sabonis. He's a guy who basically he guarantees you 40 fantasy points going up against a Rockets team, another fast-paced game. But Houston is going to be without Clint Capella here, so that should only serve to help Sabonis, who's already a monster on the boards, give you more rebounds. He might be able to dominate inside. Tyson Chandler's a solid defender, but who knows how long he can play anymore. I mean, we haven't really seen him play more than 15 minutes in any game this season. So I think Sabonis is in a really good spot to dominate down low.
Okay, Alex, what about your building block here at guard?
At guard, I started looking at Bradley Beal, kind of going back to the fast-paced nature of the Wizards-Timberwolves game. Bradley Beal, he's been taking 20 shots a game almost every contest of this season. Andrew Wiggins is out for the Timberwolves, so that might only serve to increase the pace of the game. It kind of knocks them down a potential, someone with size that they could put on Bradley Beal. I just think he's underpriced, actually, given his upside. I mean, that Beal's a guy who they rely on him so much that he could easily go for 60 or 70 fantasy points, and we shouldn't blink an eye at all. So the fact that he's only 8,500 is really surprising, and someone that I'll probably continuously put in my lineups until the price goes up.
Okay, well, you might have to pay up for some of these options, so how about hooking up the people with some value here?
I do like Steven Adams here at 4,900. He hasn't been especially good this season, but I do think they need him against the 76ers in the front court of Al Horford and Joel Embiid. And he should be relatively under-owned because he hasn't been playing that well. But at 4,900, I mean, another guy who could easily get a double-double here, pivot off some ownership percentages from other centers on the slate, guys like Brian and Karl Towns. I think he's going to be an overlooked value option for tonight's slate.
All right, slate approved pick time. Who's your lock for tonight's 8-game slate?
My lock is James Harden, but I should also say that sort of includes Karl Anthony Towns. I think you have to play one of these two guys. Harden's especially in a good position without Clint Capella. I don't exactly know what they're going to do on offense. I don't think we know whether or not Westbrook's playing yet. So this offense could run through Harden even more than it already does. And like I mentioned before, with Wiggins out, that should only serve to help Towns see increased usage. And it's Towns' birthday. So if you like narratives, there's a little something.
We love Narrative Street. All right, birthday boy going to go off. Thanks, Alex. We really appreciate it. Lots more to get to on the sweat. We're revealing our parlay of the week. Jeff is going to help us make sense of tonight's 5-game hockey slate. But before all of that, earlier this week, our own Tara Lynn Asak attended Celtics guard Marcus Smart's bowling bash, and she discovered something interesting about the C's. Take a look.
Why should fantasy owners draft you to be on their team?
I don't know. Because I'm the best looking out there. I don't know how the fantasy basketball stuff works.
Okay.
We're the best. Boston's the best, so we got to draft me. It would be smart to join the team now.
I feel like I give most of the value to Javante over here.
What are you going to say?
Well, I'm going to go with Grant. He's a guy that can get you a lot of points and also rebounds, to get you points. He's honestly a stat sheet stuffer. He gets everything. You get assists, you can play the 1 there, you can play the 5 for our team. Javante should be starting lineup in every league you got.
Why should a fantasy owner draft you for their team?
The only reason why they would draft anybody else. You want to win, right? So you want to win, then I'm a winner.
You heard it here first. You've got to draft Taco Fall for your fantasy team.
And you get to have the tallest guy in the, yeah.
Why don't I have the tallest guy?
Why don't you want to have the tallest guy in your team?
Great, thank you so much.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Homestead. Whose salary jumped up this week? Kyle Larson, $9,600 up to $10,200 in the last 3 Homestead races. He's led 322 laps. But will he be a dominant force on the wall in the 2019 package? Denny Hamlin, $10,600 up to $11,100. Looked like he was going to be the next Mark Martin to never win a championship. But then he won at Phoenix, and he's the favorite again. Ryan Newman, $7,600 up to $8,000. Fun fact about Ryan Newman, she is best known for her role in Disney XD's Zeke and Luther, and as Allison in the Thundermans. Maybe I Googled the wrong Ryan Newman. He'll finish 10th to 15th. Next driver, whose salary dropped this week? Michael McDowell, $6,000 down to $5,300. Michael McDowell giveaway week. You get what you pay for, and you pay for what you get. Kevin Harvick, $11,500 down to $10,800. Don't worry so much about wins. It's about fast laps and laps led, and those come from the pole. Kevin Harvick won a lot of poles. Martin Truex Jr., $11,200 down to $10,600. This race could be 4 wide, crazy restarts, and turn into chaos. That happened in the Coke 600, and Martin Truex Jr. won the Coke 600. Favorite play of the week, Alex Bowman, $7,800. Chicago is the most similar track to Homestead, and Bowman won Chicago and scored the most fantasy points. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., $6,900. I'm a glutton for punishment. I wouldn't want to end it any other way. He's been good at the intermediate tracks that have multiple grooves. Finished 12th at Chicago. All right, guys, check out the DK playbook for your DFS information and needs. If you have NASCAR questions, hit me on Twitter at Race for the Prize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Maybe I'll see you next year.
As promised, Jeff Ulrich is here to talk hockey. He's not our only Canadian, but he is Canadian. Jeff, this is NHL opening faceoff. Need you to pick between the top options at each position on tonight's 5-game slate. Big matchup in the NHL tonight with the Bruins in Toronto. Is it an Austin Matthews night for 7,800 or a Patrice Bergeron night for 7,700 at center?
Yeah, I would lean towards Matthews here. I know most people obviously like getting a piece of that big Boston Bruins line. It's not a bad idea tonight by any means, but the Bruins are coming in really banged up. No Torrey Krug. They've got tons of injuries at forward. I just feel like this is a night where Toronto's going to be able to take advantage of the home team. Austin Matthews has been playing well, too. He's got points his last 3 or 4 games. I like this matchup. The Bruins don't exactly have like the most dominant penalty kill either. They are a pretty good defensive team. But again, with the injuries, all things considered, I'd go with Matthews here.
Well, Boston's David Pastrnak is the top-priced winger at $8,300, with Washington's Alex Ovechkin just under him at $8,200. Is it worth paying up for one of them, or are you going to look for more value here?
No, I mean, you can definitely fit them in. I mean, I think if we're just talking about the two of them, it's a really close decision. Obviously, Pasternak's been one of the most productive goal scorers in the league this year, but I mean, Ovechkin is no slouch. He's still up there in shots on goal and stuff like that. I think you got to look at the matchup. I really like Carey Price has been playing really well, so it'd probably lead me towards Pastrnak. He's going to be playing a ton. Obviously, the Bruins forwards are thin, so even just a couple extra shifts when you're talking between these guys is going to make a difference. So I think Pastrnak for that reason. It's a good matchup too. I mean, Toronto, even though I like them tonight, I mean, they're still struggled defensively in a lot of areas. So I think it's a better matchup. I'd go with Pastrnak.
Well, the Devils' PK Subban has been disappointing in fantasy, but his Devils are hosting a Sidney Crosby-less Pens team that has lost 3 of their last 5. So Subban is $5,200 in this matchup. Would you give him a shot or look elsewhere in that price range? Maybe somebody like Blue Jackets D-man Seth Jones for just $100 more?
Yeah, Subban has just been bad with the New Jersey Devils. Really no other way to say it. I mean, bad for fantasy anyways. I mean, the Devils have been bad all over, but it's kind of been just a real weird bust spot for Subban, and there's really no reason to think that he's just going to turn it around tonight. I mean, the Penguins are still a good defensive team even without Sidney Crosby, so I don't like that play at all personally. I think going up to Seth Jones is kind of interesting. Probably wouldn't be my pick either. If you can, I would try to get up to Morgan Riley at $5,900. He's priced under $6K for only the first time in the last 10 games. That would be my pick. There's not a whole other lot to choose from in this range. Ivan Provorov is probably more interesting to me than PK Subban. He's got a really good, nice matchup against Ottawa. He's moved on to the first-line power play for the Flyers, and they have a solid power play. So Provorov or going up to Morgan Riley at $5,900 would be my choice.
All right, which goalie are you targeting on this 5-game slate?
Yeah, again, there's a couple interesting options. I mean, obviously you have a smaller player pool to choose from. I mentioned Carey Price. I really do like him in GPPs. I mean, when you see Carey Price get in form, he usually will keep that form for a few weeks. And I mean, his last 2 games have been really solid. Save percentages over 0.93, which is really good. It's a tougher matchup, but sometimes the tougher matchups with the new DK scoring, the saves bonus once you get to 35 saves, that can really kick into those big games. So especially for GPPs, I don't mind going with Carey Price. I think Frederik Andersen, the Maple Leafs is in a good spot. And I think if you're kind of just thinking about a cash game, Carter Hart's been playing really well for the Philadelphia Flyers. He lost his last game, but it was an OT loss. Got the save bonus. He had wins in 4 starts before that. So going up against Ottawa, which is a really weak defensively team, I think Carter Hart at 8,000 makes the most sense.
Finally, who is your slate approved pick?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been struggling with this on the smaller slate. I'm just going to go with it's kind of a jockey pick, but if you're getting Malkin, I mean, Sidney Crosby is out. His playing time is up over the last little bit. He's just got a cake matchup against the New Jersey Devils, who are just bad at everything. Malkin, yeah, $6,800. He's just too cheap at under 7K is what it comes down.
All right, thanks, Jeff. You will be back to close the show with our NFL panel, and the parlay reveal is almost here. But first, the Showtime original drama series Ray Donovan returns with everyone's favorite fixer knocking heads as he navigates New York's corrupt mayor and a looming threat to the Donovan family they never saw coming. Starring Liev Schreiber and Jon Voight, Ray Donovan premieres Sunday, November 17th at 8 p.m. only on Showtime. Now here's a sneak peek.
We were a good team today, Donovan and Sonny. I'm a Donovan. I'm more like you guys.
I don't know why you want to be anything like us.
Bang, bang, bang. I'm just running from the violence.
Hey, happy Friday. I'm Taralyn Azek, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Well, a couple days ago, Carmelo Anthony said he was 2,000% sure he would be making a return to the NBA this season. Turns out he wasn't lying. Melo has reportedly agreed to a non-guaranteed deal with the Portland Trail Blazers and will be returning to the NBA after sitting out for over a year. Portland, who is off to a disappointing 4-8 start, is hoping the 10-time All-Star can inject some life into their season. The non-guaranteed deal means Melo will have to work for it, and he'll get the chance in Portland. The Trailblazers have struggled at the forward position this season, ranking 27th in points per game and last in field goal percentage. It seems like a perfect fit given both sides appear to be pretty desperate. The Melo experiment will begin Saturday in San Antonio, with the 35-year-old set to join the team for their upcoming 6-game road trip.
Bears-Rams in LA. It's a great matchup. If we were filming this, well, last season, this year, all the good vibes have flown the coop. Still, we're here. Adam Kaufman, Reed Fowler for the Sunday Night Showdown series presented by KFC. Reed, these clubs both need some serious help, obviously, as it relates to the NFC standings. That starts with this first game. So who's your Colonel's pick for your captain spot?
If David Montgomery is active, I do like him as a captain, but if he's not, go with Allen Robinson. Like 7 targets in 8 of his last 9 games. And Jalen Ramsey, while he probably knows him from their days in Jacksonville, he's still given up 70% catch rate over the year. Mitch Trubisky and company, they're probably going to be playing from behind. He's going to have to force feed Allen Robinson a ton of targets. And in this game, I like that a lot.
How about we explore the rest of your offense? Yeah, it was inevitable. Only about 40 projected points in this one. So where's the offense going to come from? Who's a good fit with your Colonel?
Well, you touched on it right there. I mean, 40 points. Give me not a lot. Give me the other running back, Todd Gurley, another guy that we just haven't seen what he's been able to do last season to this season. A lot of it might have been, if we want to use this word in football, load management for a guy like Todd Gurley. But again, Chicago, since Akeem Hicks has gone down, that run defense has been exploited a little bit. And again, with touches, that's what you need in that backfield, especially with how they want to use or maybe scale back Gurley's touches. The Bears have given up a total of about 30 touches to that running backs or 2 running backs in opposing backfields. And so that volume could be there for Gurley. He needs to score. That's what we need. And I think in this game, we're going to need to attack those running backs.
Here's something I know about load management. Better for teams that know they're going to the playoffs as opposed to the ones that are still trying to get in. That's going to do it for the latest edition of the Sunday Night Series presented by KFC. Try these right here, the new KFC wings today. Your choice of buffalo, honey barbecue, or Nashville hot sauces, because finger licking good.
On the next game of the slate is the Texans at the Ravens, which has potential to be one of the best games on the slate from a fantasy perspective and definitely from a real-life perspective. 2 of the most dynamic special quarterbacks in the league. Is Lamar Jackson entering the generational talent conversation, boys?
Who are you removing to enter Lamar Jackson into the? You can't have like 10 generational. You got to remove somebody.
Patrick Mahomes is the only guy who I'm saying is a generational quarterback at this point. It has not been good with the injuries for him, but still buying that.
What about
who's the generational running back?
I said Saquon Barkley, who's been absolutely dust since I said that.
Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's not the generational talent.
You know how much
I
love
local
Christian
product,
McCaffrey.
Peter. You're going against your own city now.
Christian McCaffrey is a straight baller. And I've
a generational talent. But
I've had a lot of conversations about Christian McCaffrey, some of which are inappropriate with you two. So, all right, let's keep it. Let's stay on track here because this is a really good game. Ravens are favored by 4 points. Adam, what are the news and notes?
Yeah, Will Fuller sounds like he has a chance to get back for Houston, which would send DeAndre Carter back to the bench and move Kenny Stills into the slot. I don't know, though. Will Fuller may give Will Fuller another week. I suspect Ravens come in pretty healthy. Cornerback position we know is their extreme strength right now. I think it's a tough spot going into Baltimore for Deshaun Watson and these guys. And yeah, I was happy to see that DraftKings got aggressive with Lamar Jackson's price because at 7,700 you start to have questions. I still think Lamar Jackson, you can make cases the best quarterback on the slate, even once you consider price. But at least now you have to think about it to some degree, and at least there's now like a wide range, right? So like if you're willing to like punt it off with Jeff Driscoll, you can save 3,100, or you punt it off with not even punting off. If you play Kyle Allen, you save 2,400, et cetera, et cetera. So there's at least some thought there. Whereas before it was like Lamar Jackson was priced right next to like 8 different guys when he's so obviously just the most ridiculous fantasy player that we've seen in recent memory. I mean, he's on pace to break Patrick Mahomes' record for most fantasy points in a season by a quarterback set last year. So. I was glad to see that on the pricing.
So if you roster Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey, since they're both essentially like rostering 2 players, you get to roster 11 players on DraftKings. You get those extra roster spots. I mean, with Lamar, you're getting a quarterback and a running back in one, and with Christian McCaffrey, getting a running back and a wide receiver in one spot. So you could theoretically draft 11 players if you just roster those 2 guys in the same lineup.
Christian McCaffrey
That seems like an advantage.
Christian McCaffrey might throw a touchdown here soon too. Again, just
oh great! Now he's a 3-positional player.
Yeah, generational.
Yeah,
you reminded me.
You wanted multi-positional eligibility in football. Here's how you get it. You roster Lamar Jackson. You can roster 4 running backs and 1 quarterback. You'll be the only person on DraftKings that can do that. I like the pricing, though. I mean, look, at his other prices, he was kind of bust-proof, right? At 6,800 and 6,200, he was bust-proof. Like, what's a bad day at that price? And considering that he's not running it as little as they said he was going to, like, remember before the season, they were like, we can't let him run the ball 17 times a game on average again. We have to get him to run it maybe 10 to 12 times a game. Certain situations, he'll run it more than 10 or 12. But we want to hold him down to 10 or 12 carries. That's still 200 carries in a season, which would smash the previous record. And then the last week against Cincinnati, when they got up 106-5, he ran it only 7 times, and one of them was a long 47-yard touchdown with a circle button spin move in there. But the previous few games, 16 carries, 14 carries, 19 carries, 14 carries. They know how to put defenses on their heels.
What's up, Parlay fans? I'm Adam Kaufman with this week's Underdog Parlay of the Week. This is Penny. She's 19, which is 133 in dog years, so in a way she's been around longer in the NFL. Let's find out which teams will have their odds boosted on DK Sportsbook thanks to Penny here. This week's 3 parlay pairings are the Falcons and Eagles, Atlanta's and Carolina, while Philadelphia's hosting New England in a Super Bowl rematch. Next, Jaguars and Bengals. Jacksonville's visiting Indianapolis, and Cincinnati will go for its first win in Oakland. Finally, 2 teams from the Sunshine State. Gorgeous. Dolphins and Buccaneers. Miami's hosting Buffalo, and Tampa has New Orleans in a couple division clashes. Take it away, Penny. And this week's Parlay of the Week is the Jaguars and Bengals. Head over to DK Sportsbook and take advantage of this odds boost. Thanks, Penny. Take the rest of the day off.
Guys, we made it. Final block of the show. I can practically taste the ramen I'm going to order for dinner. I got DraftKings contributors Reed Fowler and Jeff Ulrich here, plus Derek Brown of the Quant Edge for NFL What Are the Odds, where we take a look at some interesting bets for this weekend's NFL slate. Now, we now know the parlay of the week, Cincinnati and Jacksonville. Early thoughts on that combo, Reed?
Jacksonville one is interesting, right? I mean, they're not that much of an underdog in this spot, and the only thing that is kind of weird is that we don't know what Nick Foles is going to do. We don't know how he's going to perform in this matchup. We get Jacoby Brissett back with the Colts. The coach should deploy a strong run game. Jacksonville is not that good against the run, so that's the one obviously that scares me. Cincinnati won. Look, Oakland can give up this game. That's in their realm of possibilities. It's what they do in Oakland. Trust me, I've been an Oakland fan all my life, and I've seen these losses, but it's going to be that Jacksonville one. So,
Jeff, what's your take?
I mean, I know what Jacksonville's going to do. They're going to win this week. Look, Nick Foles is back, baby. That dog knew exactly what she was doing, too. She kind of she teased me a little bit, and then she looped back around.
Yeah.
Right for Jacksonville. I'm all in on Penny this week. Jacksonville's a sure thing. Look, Indy's still banged up. Foles is back. The Cincinnati one's interesting. I mean, is it really that big a long shot to see Oakland blow a game? I mean, it's not, really. I mean, Cincinnati, are they really going to go out 16? I don't know. I don't mind it. Those are big odds we're talking about, especially with the boost. So it's definitely 50% of it's good. The other 50%, it's not bad.
Derek, what do you think?
I like Jacksonville. You know Uncle Lenny's going to get fed. I mean, he's going to get the rock. And so with the Bengals, man, if there's ever a spot for the Raiders, because now everybody's kind of coming around, they're loving on Gruden, and the Raiders nation is really feeling themselves right now. if there's ever a letdown spot, I mean, good gosh, it's got to be versus the Bengals, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna attest to that. Like,
Yeah.
this is pure Raiders. This is exactly it. Where this is where like everyone says, oh, they're actually in the playoff race, and then they lose to Cincinnati.
Ryan Finley did not look that bad last week. It was a complete mismatch, but I mean, in spots he didn't look bad. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
We will see. All right, Texans and Ravens have a high total of 51.5, and with that, the combined touchdown total is set at 6.5. You can get plus 160 odds on that over, but is that just too high of a total for you, Jeff?
No, I don't think it is. I think this game has a really good shot at going over. I mean, I think you look at pace of play, and Baltimore's like last in that. But I mean, these two teams are just so efficient at scoring, especially Baltimore. I mean, they're 5th and 6th in the red zone in terms of efficiency. And look, the Texans on the road are 3-1 at hitting the over as away underdogs. So I mean, they're just really good in that spot. Deshaun Watson just does not lose by more than a touchdown ever. So it's not like Baltimore is in a situation where they're going to get out and just sit on it. Deshaun Watson's going to put up some points. I don't mind the over in the spot at all.
Too high for you, Derek?
No, I actually love it too. You've seen these two teams combine hit that over in their contest on 50% of their games. Heck, we've seen Lamar Jackson versus the Dolphins and the Bengals just drag the opponents over that mark basically by himself. So I like the mark. I'm definitely in the over.
Reed, these guys like it. What about you?
Yeah, 3 for 3. Watson is fantastic in the month of November as well. His TD to interception ratio is 7-2 over his last 4 years. And just look at both of these teams. Baltimore scores an average of 5 touchdowns at home, and that's crazy. And Houston, they can score, man. They can score on the road. Deshaun Watson keeps his team in play in games. And if you just look at this matchup too as well, we may get Will Fuller back, hopefully, but Marquise Brown and some of these receivers in Baltimore should have big games. They're in great spots. It's going to lead more towards passing because Texans, they've been really good against the run. They're number 3 in rush defense. So even with that running game that they have in Baltimore, I think it's going to be a pass-happy game.
All right, let's talk about a game that probably won't be pass-happy. Jets and Redskins have a game total of just 38.5. These two teams have been offensively challenged this season, but enough to hit an under here, Derek?
Oh, you got to smash the under. The Redskins have been terrible. They've scored 9, 0, and 17 points in the last 4 games. This game is going to absolutely kill the under. These two teams are slow as all get out. At this pace, this game is going to be terribly slow and nasty. I love the under.
Reed, you got to go with the under here, right?
Yeah. I mean, sorry, Jets fans. I thought the Raiders were in a world of hurt beginning of the season, and the Jets, they're just nothing. And then now they want to actually keep Gase around. They said that Gase is the coach, and I just do not get that play. Gase is not, in my mind, a good head coach. Good quarterback coach, good play caller, but not a good head coach. And just look at what Callahan wants to do. He wants to run the ball. I mean, the one game that Washington won, Adrian Peterson got 23 attempts. And now since Callahan has been there, it's 52% run to 48% pass. And so when you have Dwayne Haskins, look, it would be smart for Dwayne Haskins to actually throw the ball more than the Redskins running the ball, just to get his feet wet and get those cobwebs out and get his first game and actually mature as a quarterback. I don't think that's going to happen, so I'm with Derek here. The under is definitely in play.
Jeff, you got to go with the under, right?
I mean, I would definitely lean towards the under if I was betting this. It's not really a total I necessarily want to touch. I just feel like both these teams are so unpredictable. The Jets offense can get it going in spots. I mean, we saw them do it against Dallas, and it's not like either of these defenses are that good, especially the Redskins. So I could see the Jets put up points, and you also have a pick 6 possibility with Dwayne Haskins. So I would totally lean the under. I mean, Derek's right. Like, the pace of play here is going to be pathetic, but at the same time, it's just 38.5 points. So, yeah, a little risky, but I'd still lean under.
Cardinals are 9.5-point underdogs against the 49ers, but if you think they can get out to a quick start and hold a lead at the end of the first quarter, you can get plus 300 odds. Reed, do you think that can happen?
Yeah, I do. And talk about surprising teams. I think Arizona has to be in that consideration along with Oakland. I think this is the most I've actually talked positively about Oakland in one segment, but they should be considered as one of the better teams. Granted, they're not necessarily throwing a lot of touchdowns in the red zone, and we also talk about that with Kyler Murray and so on and so forth. But when you look at just the pace in which we always talk about, Arizona is number one across the board. If you want to do quarter by quarter, they just run a ton of plays. And again, this is a division matchup, and you have San Francisco having a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball, especially on the offensive side. And so if Arizona gets out to a bigger lead, or if they get out where their pace of play and they keep on getting first downs, I actually kind of like this one a lot.
Jeff, do you think it can happen?
I usually make fun of these bets when we bring them up, like first quarter. I mean, it's kind of hard to predict, right? But I actually really like this bet. You got the 49ers coming in with a ton of injuries, and the Cardinals are not good at the end of games, but they're kind of good at the start of games, getting out to a good start when their plays are scripted, and they're going up against a San Francisco team who's had 2 slow starts in a row now, plus 300 odds to lead. Yeah, I don't mind this. I mean, I kind of like the Cardinals plus 10 or plus 9.5, whatever they are now, but to lead after the first quarter at these odds, I actually think this is a pretty solid bet.
Derek, these guys are intrigued. What about you?
I'm actually going to go the opposite side of this. As juicy as this looks, you have San Francisco. They've only walked out of the first quarter without leading in one of their contests all the way back in week 3. As banged up as they are, I still think they lean on the run in this one. As fast as Arizona wants to run it, they've only walked out of the first quarter leading 4 times this year. So I actually like the other side of this.
All right, 2 former teammates, Ravens running back Mark Ingram and Saints back Alvin Kamara, are both being given plus 275 odds to score 2 touchdowns in their respective games on Sunday. So 2-part question for you, Jeff. First, of these 2 guys, who is the most likely to do it? And second, would you take one of these guys at these odds? Would you take both, neither? What do you think?
I mean, you can't take Ingram. The Texans have allowed 3 rushing touchdowns on the season, so I mean, for Mark Ingram to basically almost double that total just on his own this week, I just don't like it. I mean, he's not really involved in the pass game either, so you're not going to luck out that way. Look, I mean, I know we have a big total here, but I don't think the bulk of the scoring is going to come through Mark Ingram. Alvin Kamara is a lot different story. I really expect the Saints to get him a lot more worked in his second game back here. And I know that Tampa Bay's got a really solid rush defense too, but at the same time, Kamara is such a dynamic back. There's so many ways he can score. I think you're going to see him get worked a lot as a receiver in this game to kind of counteract that rush defense. So plus 275, it's just not big enough odds that I want to take a gamble on a double touchdown game because they're so rare. But it would definitely be Kamara for me of the 2.
Derek, same 2-parter goes for you.
I actually don't like either one of them here. You look at these 2 defenses, they've given up the 3rd and 4th fewest rushing touchdowns in the season. Even if we're looking at Kamara possibly getting that 2nd touchdown through the air, Tampa Bay has only given up 1 touchdown this season to a running back through the pass game. And I don't think that's going to happen here. I think it's a huge Michael Thomas game, and I think Breeze is going to air it out with his other weapons.
Reed, talk to me.
Yeah, Derek makes a good point, and what's really interesting is to see how Breeze is going to be deployed in this game. We saw him pass over 40 attempts, and Derek mentioned that in the earlier segment. And I don't necessarily know if the Saints and if Sean Payton want to do that necessarily. While I still think he's a great play, while I still think Michael Thomas is a great play, I think they scale it back. If you look at last game, 17% run play percentage for New Orleans, and look what happened to against a bad Atlanta Falcons team, or excuse me, Jeff, Falcons team.
Falcons.
And it scares me quite a bit with that, because I think, and especially on the road, right, we've seen Drew Brees and his splits on grass as opposed to in the Superdome on his home turf. Just the splits, and so that scares me a little bit. And that's why Kamara, in that sense, in my mind, is going to get a lot more run. Even against that strong Tampa Bay run defense, he's going to get more run, he's going to get more opportunity. Again, hard to trust in terms of how they want to deploy him. But if you use like Mark Ingram, I mean, it's not only the matchup that scares me. His last 2 games, 49%, 44% snap count. Gus Edwards and these guys are getting run, and Lamar Jackson is always a candidate to get those touchdowns in the red zone, outside the red zone, wherever you have it. He's always a guy that could vulture those touchdowns. So if it's going to be one of the 2, it's going to be Kamara for the double touchdown.
All right, finally, the Falcons are getting the respect they deserve. All right, that's a show, folks. Thank you, you three. The Sweat will be back Sunday at 11:30 a.m., leading you all the way up until kickoff at 1, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the places that you normally watch. Facebook, did I mention Facebook? Yeah, we'll see you there.
Get that ramen.